This is writer Kelly Thompson, and you've jumped inside the pull bag, only on Geekcast Radio Network.
I retire for, what, like 5 minutes, and it all goes to shit.
Hello, and welcome to So You Want to Be a Hawkeye, a new miniseries exclusively on the pull bag in Studio 2009 here at the Geekcast Radio Network. This series is going to discuss all things Hawkeye, delving into both Clint Barton and Kate Bishop in the comics, and then in the Hawkeye Disney Plus series premiering on November 24th, 2021. I am TF2 and Mike. Joining me is Alison Sky Richards, who came up with this excellent idea of a miniseries. Hello, Alison. How are you?
I'm doing well, Mike. How's things going? I know.
You almost said, "How are you?" this time, didn't you? You almost did.
I really tried to figure a different way to put it out.
So, for those that don't know, for those that haven't seen my Facebook or aren't friends with me, I keep my Facebook stuff public. I don't care. If people want to see it, they can see it. I don't care. Whatever. But if we're not friends on Facebook and you didn't see this, I haven't really made a podcast announcement. I've kind of alluded to it the last couple of episodes, which at this point of recording are probably not even online yet because I haven't edited them yet. But my lovely wife, Karen Blanchard, is in the last throes of death. She is non-responsive completely. There's nothing they can do. She had a battle with alcohol. She is and was 60-something days sober, except for it's multiple organ failure is what she's dying of, liver and kidneys. Well, in order to get transplants, you have to be sober 6 months. They said she could make it that way, and then it just kept declining. The last I knew, it was 3 months, and then when we put her in hospice a couple days ago, as of this recording, the hospice nurse, when she came to check her in, basically said she has days, if not weeks.
Oh my God.
So, November 5th, 2021. Add that to the worst days of my life. And I'm sorry to bring this entire show down because we have an illustrious guest with us tonight, a returning guest. You may know her from her work on IDW Publishing's Gem and the Holograms. That series still needs to continue, damn it. Mighty Morphin Power Rangers Pink, which I believe is a review that I did with my buddy Jesse Raz and will be an episode after this, I think. Marvel's Hawkeye Private Eye, West Coast Avengers, which I have just started reading. I haven't gotten too far into it, but I'm loving it so far. And the current runs of Black Widow and It's Jeff. Welcome back to the GCRN, Kelly Thompson.
Thanks for having me, Mike. I'm incredibly sorry to hear that personal news of yours. I wish there was anything I could say, let alone do. I'm so sorry you're going through that.
Thank you so much.
Too.
Yep, thank you
so much. Love and hugs going through the microphone, all through the interwebs, and popping out your speakers.
Ow, stop poking me in the side, Alison. What's wrong with you?
That needs a whole separate podcast.
Alison poking people through speakers with sticks.
They're arrows.
I sort of really like that imagery that's creating for me. This idea of what we're listening to sort of being so powerful that it's a physical manifestation. I sort of love that. It's very Gem to me.
Yes, it is. It's very hologramish. And the crazy thing is, and this is so off the wall, and I know this is our episode with you to talk about Kate Bishop and all that, but because we've gotten into all of this, I'm just going to let it ride. The other day, before Karen came home from the hospital and before she got sent to hospice, I was sitting here at my desk. I was just sitting here watching something or preparing something. I don't even think I was editing. I literally felt a hand on my shoulder, and I could hear my Aunt Rose, who has been dead since 2003. I could just hear her voice in my head, and I hadn't thought of her in at least a few years, and immediately I messaged my cousin Heather, who was her daughter, and I'm like, when did your mom die? Wasn't it sometime in October of 2003? and she told me the date and whatever. I'm like, holy crap, it was a week ago. Like, wow. Like, at that time it was a week ago and I'm like, yeah. So the whole physical manifestation of audio, I fully believe that's a thing.
Well, not only that, but also most Wiccans will tell you that the veil is thin at Halloween time, so it's easier for you to contact the dead. So
I don't like having conversations with zombies. Thank you very much.
but I love Jesus.
I think he pronounces it Jesus. Okay, so this is your baby, Alison. This is all about you and your Hawkeye love. Take it away.
One moment. Go, go, go! Can ripple across space and time, giving birth to new heroes.
I can't go home till I fix this.
Look, I know this may sound weird, but I've dreamed of this for as long as I can remember. When I put that suit on, I thought, this is it. This is the moment I become who I'm supposed to be.
I remember the day I thought the same thing. This life you want to live, it comes with a price.
Well, there's also things you gain. Like trick arrows and a cool costume.
I'm sorry, Kate. I'm not a role model to anyone.
Yes, you are. As far as I'm concerned, we're in this together.
Yes, so hi, Kelly. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. It's great to meet you. Thanks for having me on.
Yes, same here. It's been fun, talking with you on Twitter for the last couple. Hold on, sorry, my cats are being buttheads.
I have that same kind of thing, so I feel you.
Yeah, so no, it's just been great talking to you for a while now, almost like a year or two over Twitter, and finally, being able to put a voice to the picture.
Well, of course, if you listened to my 2015 interview, you would have heard her voice by now.
Yeah, why are you sleeping on all those great interviews?
Too many episodes.
Yeah, there are.
Yeah.
It's always funny to me when I just went on a podcast for the first time with some new people that I hadn't ever podcasted with before. I just did an interview with them a couple weeks ago, and I saw a lot of people talking in the response to them saying I was going to be on, saying, oh my God, does she do those interviews? I've never heard her voice before and all this stuff. And all I could think was, I've done so many podcasts. How have these people never heard my voice? Like, so many podcasts are on so many different channels and platforms and everything. Because I don't really do video or live appearances, that's, podcasts and interviews are sort of all I really do. And it was just, it's a funny example of how you think you're broadcasting, you think you're sharing, you think you're getting out to people, and there's still just huge swaths of them that have no idea what you sound like, what you're doing, what your books are. It's such a weird bubble to live in with the internet, where you feel like you're reaching people, and you are, but there are just all these people you can't even see. You can't even know that they're out there. It's wild.
Yeah. Well, I also use my excuse that I've been in grad school for the last 3 years, and this year I'm in a teaching residency, so I don't have time. Yeah. I really haven't had time since 2017.
And on Alison's other podcast, which isn't on the GCRN, the Fortress of Baileytude Superman and Lois tapes, they tried to pawn it off like she was on some super secret mission, like she was going to go stalk Tyler Hoechlin or something.
I did that at DragonCon.
That was after you revealed what your super secret mission was, though.
Yes, I have. I have 2 master degrees. Well, no, sorry. 1 master's of fine arts with 2 concentrations. One's creative writing, and one is screenwriting.
Cool. Very cool.
And now I'm going to become a middle school writing teacher. So
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's like that's where I got my love of writing and characterization. And and
I think
want to.
That's a very formative time. I think you're right on the money there.
Yeah, and being a student teacher this year, I'm seeing all these different students. They're getting into D&D for storytelling. They're video gamers, and all of them are connected through the art of the story. And I want to be able to look at all their different passions and teach them how they can encapsulate that and use writing as a tool for a career in the things that they love.
Yeah. No, I think that's I know school's changed a lot since I was in elementary school, I'm sure. So maybe it's a little different, but that was very true for me. I think it was, I'd always wanted to be a writer, since I was little, like even before I was going to school, I was like making little books out of construction paper and stuff. But it was in, I think, 6th grade that I wrote a short story. We all had to write them for some project or something. And my teacher was like, "You wrote this?" And like it was like, I'm sure it was terrible, but I was in 6th grade, but it was, to her, for my grade level, it was incredibly creative, and she was very surprised by it, and she was very encouraging. And I think it was probably the first person that made me think, oh, maybe I have, this is what I want to do. This is what I love, but nobody's told me I'm any good at it before. Like, that was the first time. And like, obviously I got there eventually. So, thanks to her for sure.
Yeah, same. My first fiction story was in 7th grade. It was like semi fan fiction because I took the characters from the movie My Girl, and I threw them into the movie Toy Soldiers, which are completely two different genres. And then instead of having terrorists, I had aliens invade. And so that was my very first one. And my teacher, she loved it because I didn't stop like at the 1-page limit. I think I wrote and this is handwriting out, at least 10 pages.
Yeah. Yeah, that's funny. Let me tell you what, I low-key love Toy Soldiers. And never in my whole lifetime did I think it would be a movie that anyone ever brought up to me on a podcast, which is hilarious.
Yes.
I will also say that, that's a very formative time. I think that's a pretty cool time to be like catching kids who are really figuring out who they are and what they're into, and their creativity being really boundless. Right after that year, I moved, and we moved to a much bigger city. And I had always been in like advanced English classes or honors classes, whatever. And when we moved, the teachers were like, well, she's in a much bigger pond now, so do you want her to be the dumbest in the smart class or the smartest in the dumb class? And my parents were like, well, we don't like how either of those sound, but okay, I guess we want her to be the smartest, which I appreciate that so much in my parents, who are incredibly lovely, supportive people who I'm sure only didn't want me to ever be hurt. But in retrospect, I hope they look back on that and go, why weren't we trying to challenge her? Because why didn't we have faith in her? When I hear that story, I find it funny, but it's a little disappointing. And of course, the end to that story is that within the first week, when my parents went to the teacher conference, the teacher was like, she needs to be in my honors class. I don't know what she's doing in here. And they were like, oh, good. There was a bit of a concern. And so I got moved to the honors class where there was a lot more creative writing going on. And that was a big class for me. That was eighth grade, 9th grade. And that was a big class for me where I really, I think it was 8th, where I really started to push into creative writing a lot. So again, a great teacher who recognized that I had a passion for it and was really encouraging.
Yeah, I didn't get my mom supported me a lot. My brother and my dad really never understood what the whole writing thing was about. But when I got to high school, all I wanted to do was write, and that's all I did in any of my courses. And so my math teacher realized that I was writing an 80-page Western in my notebook instead of doing my algebra. And he just looked down here at it and he's like, okay, first of all, horses weigh more than 400 pounds. Secondly, you're going to need to see me after class. Third, I'm taking this because I want to read it.
Wow, that's nice. That's nice. We had very similar trajectories because in high school, I did all my comics writing, whole books of it, and sometimes screenplays. I wouldn't say I ever finished a screenplay because even back then I was so interested in dialogue. It was mostly just scenes, but I didn't know how to format it because, it was before the internet. I didn't know, like, how does it look? How's it supposed to look? Whether I was trying to describe actions in a TV show or a movie, or whether I was trying to describe a panel, I just didn't know how you were supposed to do it. And so I would just see in my mind what I thought it was, and then I would just write what I thought the dialogue should be. And I wrote reams and reams, filled multiple notebooks, all in French, French, which was a repeat, and then French 2 and French 3. My French is very bad as a result, and I have a lot of really, really terrible early Kelly Thompson dialogue that she thinks is great.
Wait. You mean to tell me you can't say that you're truly outrageous, Jem, in French?
Probably not.
Damn, I thought
outrageous. Truly outrageous. Those are tough words. I mean, I can say like, my name's Kelly, we're friends, like stuff like that, How do you get to the library?
The only Spanish I remember is what I learned from watching Encino Man and that scene with Brendan Fraser in the Spanish class.
That's funny.
But I wanted to do similar with the comic book stuff, but I had a art teacher when I was taking art and trying to learn how to draw comics, who basically told me that, I wasn't going to get to go anywhere with my writing. I should just work on art instead. And I was just like, well, okay, you're going to be the villain in this novel I'm writing, and I'm switching classes.
That's funny. I think I had very encouraging all through high school, all through those years we were talking about, and then through to high school, I was in creative writing, and I submitted to the literary magazine for the high school and things like that. I think I only got 1 or 2 pieces in, but I was very encouraged. She was the creative writing teacher in particular in high school was really great. It wasn't until I went to college, which I ended up eventually transferring to SCAD, Savannah College of Art and Design, to focus on sequential art. But the first college I went to was the University of Arizona, which is not a particularly great school. I mean, it's fine, but, and they didn't have a particularly great art program. I was sort of an art major, but I was also thinking about being an English major. And I had this basically an English 101 class, and I not only hated it, but the teacher, he was terrible. He was uninspiring, and he was totally uninspired by my work, which, that's fine. But I will say it was shocking how much that derailed me. I mean, I would say that teacher, after having a lot of teachers who really supported me and encouraged me to keep trying and keep working on it, that guy being desperately unimpressed with me, really set me off a path where set me back years, I would say. Which is not, I'm not trying to put all the blame on him. I mean, a lot of that comes from, as a person, you have to learn how to take in what people give you and use what you can and be strong enough to believe in yourself and push forward, even if not every person is like rah, 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 because not every person is going to be, whether they're just dicks or whether they're genuinely just don't think you've got it. But, you got to be stronger than that for yourself if you want to make it through some creative industries like we're in. So,
Kelly, I swear we have got like the same trajectory for a very long time, because my English 101 class in college, I had a teacher who was, I was trying to learn and interpret poetry, and she was very much your interpretation must match my interpretation or you're doing it wrong.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah. And like to the point where my classmates were even defending my interpretation of a poem. And she still gave me a C at the end of the year. And that just threw me off the entire English program. I didn't want to be bothered with it anymore. And I went to journalism instead with the communication so I could still write. But But yeah, any career I could have gone through college with my writing was shot, which is why I'm circling back to it like 20 years later.
Yeah. But I mean, I don't know about you, but when I look back on that, my regret isn't that I took that class and that he swayed, that he didn't like me or didn't like my writing or whatever. My regret is that I was too easily swayed. I had so little confidence in myself that I couldn't even handle, one person sort of being like, nope, you don't got it, And so I really let his criticism, valid or not, just sway me so much. And if I could go back, I'd still take that class, but I'd just make different decisions afterwards, Yeah. That said, I ended up at SCAD, which is where I should have been anyway. And, it was great. And obviously I eventually made it here and it's going pretty well. So, I can't be too regretful about it, but, I think it's great that you're going to be teaching. I think it's great that you're going to be teaching kids at that formative age. And I think it's great that someone who's had very similar experiences to what I had, ups and downs, as far as that goes, that's going to make you a great teacher.
Thank you. And I'm hopefully one day I am going to get some of my stuff actually published, and maybe one day they will let me come and play with a Hawkeye.
I mean, I never thought I would, so you never know.
Yeah. Well, speaking of our favorite Hawkeyes, why don't you tell our listeners a little bit about your history of working with our favorite Hawkeye, but not the Hawk guy? So Kate Bishop and you, what's going on?
Well, so Hawkeye was actually one of my early projects at my tenure at Marvel. The first thing I started doing at Marvel was a co-write with Kelly Thompson on Captain Marvel and the Carol Corps, which was part of that Secret Wars story. Yep. And then I did some A-Force, which I took over from G. Willow Wilson. She'd had some family commitments or something come up, and so she wasn't able to complete the book. So they brought me on, and so that became sort of my first big series. It was a co-write for the first couple issues, but then it was mine. But of course, that got canceled at 10, and so we were done. But at that time, ever since I had worked with Sana Amanat on Captain Marvel and the Carol Corps, I had been talking to her about Hawkeye, because even before I got the call to do Captain Marvel and the Carol Corps, I had been developing a pitch called Hawkeye Investigations, which was supposed to basically pick up sort of from, even though Jeff Lemire had a short run in there, it was sort of supposed to pick up off of the Fraction ideas with Kate in LA as she was trying to be an investigator. And so that was the basis of the pitch. And Sana really liked it, and she was really interested. And for a while, the timing wasn't right. And then eventually we got there, and she's like, okay, we're going to do it. Like, let's, we're going to make it happen. And so she started developing the pitch with me. I think that book was really strong. It was perfectly cast with Leonardo Romero drawing, and Michael Walsh was our alternate artist for when Leo needed breaks. And then we had Jordi Belair coloring, and it was just really just perfect. Charles Beecham was our assistant editor. And we got a lot of development time on that book. I think it's one of the reasons that it works so well from issue 1. It just knows what it is. And you either like that or you don't, but it's very confident about what it is. And it's particularly confident to me, considering that was my third book at Marvel, basically. Like, I hadn't done that much there. And so to launch that book and have it come out so strong, I was really proud of us. And I loved working with Kate. She's one of my favorite characters. I think the voice is just wonderful. But the best thing about it was working with Leo and Jordi and Michael and Sana and Charles. It was an incredible team. We had a really great time. So we did 16 issues of Hawkeye with starring Kate Bishop. The last arc co-stars Clint, as well as there's a Generations issue that happens. Yep. Sort of in the middle of the run, or toward the end, I guess, the back third. And And then we sort of spun out into an unofficial Hawkeye spinoff with Kate Bishop reassembling a West Coast Avengers team. And we got about 10 issues of that before we lost it too.
Yeah.
But, 26 issues, well, 27 if you count Generations. That's a pretty good run on a character. It's definitely, these days, it's definitely solidified her, I think, pretty permanently as one of my ultimate faves. So, yeah.
I actually have all 4 of those books sitting right on my desk right now. However, the Hawkeye Private Eye trade paper only goes up to 12.
There's a second volume. They just released it. Yes, they just released it. I think they call it let's see. I'm trying to picture the cover in my mind. I can't do it. Let me see if I can ask the computer. You're talking about the digest size, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they did a
because
the second volume, which if you already have West Coast Avengers, you maybe don't want to get, but the second volume has the last issues from the Hawkeye series, and then it's got the first 4 issues, I think, of West Coast Avengers.
Would that be Hawkeye Go West?
Yes, thank you.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. Good, because then I will have to go see if I can find that one at my store tomorrow. Because while I was at my store last Saturday, I picked up the Marvelverse Hawkeye trade paperback at digest size that came out, and it has Generations as the last one.
Oh, you're kidding.
Nope.
I'll have to look for that. That's cool. I didn't know they were doing that. That's really fun. I sort of hoped that would end up in these.
Yeah.
Since you definitely need a little bit of a primer to understand that last, if you haven't read Generations, a big character is a part of that for the last arc of our Hawkeyes. So I sort of hoped it would get collected in ours, but it does make a lot of sense to put the first bit of West Coast Avengers in there. So
yeah, but Generations actually, I think, is probably the first one of yours I read.
Oh, you know what? I'm lying.
Oh.
Generations is in this Hawkeye Go West.
Yeah, it is.
It's okay. Generations, Hawkeye 13 through 16, and then West Coast Avengers 1 through 4. So that's good. That's great.
Well, awesome. I will look for that. Because I want the rest of of your Private Eye run, because I know that this is the one that I keep seeing images of on there's this hourly Clint Barton bot on Twitter that I let pop up because it always makes me laugh. And they keep showing the images of Kate fighting Kate, and Clint's there trying to figure it out. And I'm like, this is not in my book. This is not in my digest. Where is this? But no,
I'm going to have to find that bot. That seems adorable.
Yeah. But no, Generations was the first one I got because I found it right after I had read the stuff with, after Steve Rogers died and Kate and Clint met while Clint was in the Flag. And
right.
I was just like, oh, I need to find where their first meeting was. And the comics actually directed me to Generations instead of what would then happen later in the New Avengers when they met. So yeah, I was just, so that was the first one I really read of them together, and of yours.
Well, that's funny.
I really loved it because they're like the same age almost in this.
Similar. I mean, it's hard in the Marvel universe because, they never want to pin down people's ages. But yeah, they definitely feel like they're at similar points in their career, at least, right? Young in their career, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And you just you could see how, you see through their other stories, how they're like siblings. But here you get almost that whole level of them being equals completely without having that sibling relationship there.
Yeah.
And I just loved that.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of their dynamic. when I would go on interviews back when I was doing the book, a thing I would get asked a lot was like, what makes Kate Bishop different than Clint Barton, or what makes Clint Barton different than Kate Bishop? And there's plenty of things you can point out, but I just don't think it's as interesting as what makes them the same. And like the reason they both have the Hawkeye name is like they have these sort of ineffable qualities, that are just, I don't know, they're just key to Hawkeye, sort of always getting up, like that determination, that force of will, the ability to stand next to gods with a bow and arrow is crazy, but they just sort of do it, them always being injured and having Band-Aids all over them is, I think, a great joke that leans into, a much more serious thing that we all sort of don't talk about, which is maybe you do need to be strapped into a mental hospital if you think you can handle things with bow and arrows that gods can't handle. So, but I love that about them. I love that wildness in them, that they've got a sort of cheery disposition as a default. But like one of the big things that I talk about when I talk about this run of Kate that I did was that, in Matt Fraction and David Aja's Hawkeye, Kate is so together, right? She seems way better than Clint in a lot of ways. Like, he's a mess, and she seems like a very cool kid who's got her shit together. But to me, but then when Annie Wu comes in and they move Kate off to LA, the tone really shifts. And I have not talked to Matt Fraction about this, but my personal take on this is that it's because when we're seeing Kate in New York, it's really Clint's book and we're sort of seeing her through his eyes. But when she goes to LA, we no longer have that perspective. We're seeing Kate more as she sees herself. And so because our book was not going to have Clint in it from the go, that was the take I felt we needed to lean into. And man, did I have a good time with it. It was, she's just like a really incredible character who you just can't help but root for. And, I'm not really into the whole which is the better Hawkeye, because they're both great. They're both great in similar ways and in different ways,
And honestly, I don't think in a way that Clint, especially, he needs his anchor points, and Kate is one of them. Like Kate, and Bobby and Natasha are his 3 anchor points, and he can't survive without them.
Yeah, I definitely think that, it's one of the things that bothers me when, because it usually comes from Clint fans to sort of hate on Katie Bishop. And Clint would be so mad at them. I mean, I know that's like a weird thing to say, but like, you say you love Clint more than anything. Clint would be so disappointed in you for like ragging on someone he loves. I know that sounds a little unhinged because obviously these characters aren't real, but I guess my point is people treat them like they're real. They treat them so much like they're real that they're willing to attack real people who make comics in order to get their point across. And if that's true, I mean, just step back and be like, man, Clint Barton loves Kate Bishop. He thinks she's amazing. He would never want me to say shit about her. Like, it's terrible. No, and Kate wouldn't want that either. It's one of the reasons I've always fought the better Hawkeye for either of them. I think it's dumb. It's there was a little bit of that in the advertising and some of the stuff for our book when it came out, and I never liked it, and I wanted to sort of talk to them about, like, let's lean away from this. Like, why are we, like, Clint fans don't have a book now. Why would we try to, it's all good-natured fun, but, like, some people aren't going to understand that. Like, so we should just back off of this. But, again, it was my 3rd book at Marvel. Like, it takes a while for you to get the confidence to be like, I don't think we should do this thing that you guys think is a good idea, even though you've been making comics forever, and I just came here. So, but yeah, I'm not a fan of the whole trying to make them compete. They're great. They're great. They fill different roles. They fill similar roles. I love them both.
Yeah.
And I can just see Jeremy Renner's facial expression right now to any of those people who try to do that.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
he does have the resting murder face, so.
Yes, he does.
He definitely looks a little grouchy sometimes.
Well, he actually talks about how his daughter's friends, used to be, the kids would be afraid to come up to him at Marvel events because he always looked angry.
That's funny. That's funny.
But no, I agree with you because, I've noticed that, like, especially the last, 10, 15 years of social media has allowed fandoms to talk with each other. And we've lost that brain to post filter. People do that with, like, celebrities in their relationships. Like, how can you say you're a fan of this person if you're making death threats to the person they love because it's not you?
Yeah, it's weird. It's social media. It's like anything else, right? It's this greatest thing, and it's also the worst thing at the same time. Like it's opened up so many doors. It's brought so many people together. It's sort of changed the way you can have conversations and sort of who has power in those conversations. But it's also opened us up to this incredible world of toxicity and people hiding behind the anonymity of it all. It's really, I don't really know. Like, I rely so much on social media, so I can't be a person who would say, like, for my career and also just for my connections and the people I know, like, almost all of my good friends are not people who live anywhere near me. And so the way I connect to them is through the internet and, stuff like that. So it's hard to say that it's a bad thing because it's also brought you all these really good things. But, when you see some of the harassment and some of the disgusting stuff that goes on, it's so sad and so upsetting that people want to behave this way when they're given the chance. I think that's the thing that disturbs me the most about it.
Exactly.
It's the reason why I'm always afraid, because I have so many celebrity friends just from people who I've known growing up and people who I've met at conventions and stuff that, when I want to make a new friend, like when I was trying to approach you for this, I didn't want to come off like I was bothering you because, I value, our Twitter relationship. I didn't want to come off as like a crazed fan, be like, hey, be on my podcast.
Coming to Twitter in 2022, relationship statuses. I've never understood the whole, because someone doesn't like what a comic character does, attack the creator. Give them constructive criticism. Say what you like, what you didn't like, but don't attack the person that's giving you the content. Like, that's not... Yeah.
I miss the letters to the editor, way of doing things because you had the editor in between.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, listen, I think that it's a weird thing. It's a weird thing that you can become sort of some low level famous thing, but you don't really have the protection that comes with, people who are actually famous. And so I don't know. Again, it's a greatest, best thing and a worst thing at the same time, because that veil coming down between creators and readers, it creates so much cool shit, but it also opens this avenue. Like you can't filter what comes through once you open that gate. And so it's like, all this stuff is the greatest. And I mean, listen, I've been incredibly lucky. I have great fans. People are nice to me every day on Twitter and say incredible things to me that are just, can't even believe they're being said. And I've gotten pretty good at tuning out the harassment and muting the right accounts and stuff so that I don't get too much or I don't see too much. But, it's sort of relentless,
Yeah.
Come on.
So let's swap back over to talking about fictional people. So now that we've started seeing, I think there's 3 trailers out now for the Hawkeye series. What are some of the things that you're kind of hoping from the history of Fractions comics that you kind of want to see them bring over into the MCU?
I don't know that I have any specific things, because when it comes to adaptation, I mean, I'm just interested in it being done. I don't know what's the adjective I want here. I want them to be smart. I want them to make smart choices. I don't care if the choices are always completely consistent with things I knew before. I'm interested that they're consistent within the new work, that they make sense, that they're earned, that I can relate to them, that they're emotional. I think a good example of this would be the Black Widow Yelena sort of family dynamic. I mean, that is a drastically changed origin story for Yelena Belova, as anyone who's a fan of the characters know. She and Black Widow are sisters of a kind because they're Red Room graduates. But, you know, in the comics, they were enemies more than friends most of the time. And even though Yelena's gone through a lot of evolutions, including in my own book, you know, they never had the dynamic that the movie shows. But I found that dynamic in the movie incredibly powerful. Like, they really earned it. I felt for them. I attached to them. And I loved them giving her this really dysfunctional family. You know, one of the through lines in the films for Natasha has been that sort of found family idea of her finding the Avengers and, to a lesser degree, you know, Fury and S.H.I.E.L.D. and stuff like that. And I saw some people saying that her having a family undercuts that. And I completely disagree, because I think, first of all, the first family was a found family. And so that only emphasizes the fact that she might look for that again, that she had that once and it was great. It might have been constructed by the Russian government, but it still ended up being incredibly wonderful for her. And it was desperation when she lost it, right? So the fact that she would go out and look for that again and know that her life was missing something, how would you know that, even, you know, without having seen it? I mean, I think we all know how to search for family in a way, but I don't think it undercuts it at all. I think it reinforces it. And I love that. So, you know, if you had asked me before I saw the movie, I wouldn't have said, oh, they should be a family. And if you had told me they were going to be a family, I would have been like, you know, I don't know. I hope they make it work. Like, that's definitely not what the comic says. But it was great. It was great. It completely worked for where they need the characters to go. It worked for setting up all those stakes and laying out a great story. And so that's what I want from Hawkeye too. I want them to find their way, you know? Yes, it's cool if stuff I've done or stuff from the Fraction run like makes its way into it in a really tangible way where you're like, oh, I recognize that, or oh, I remember that, or those are the same great bits. Like, I mean, that'll be really fun. But mostly I hope they just carved their own path, you know? And made something great.
Yeah, I love what you said about the found family, because, like, one of the things that I really wish that I could get, like, in novel form or something from the MCU is that time period when Clint introduced Nat to Laura and the family. Because you can see how close Nat is to his two kids. And so being able to see her having that family again, and then she gets the Avengers family on top of it. You know, just seeing how her whole evolution from when Hawkeye was sent to kill her to the point where we first meet her, you know, and how that goes through. And a lot of it is basically from Clint's influence. Yeah.
I mean, I think, to me, I've got no problem with the family in the movies for Hawkeye. I think it's interesting. I think it was sort of a fun swerve, but I do think that it wasn't as well earned to me as the Black Widow movie. Maybe that's just because it got sandwiched into an Avengers movie, and so that's how we learned of it. I think probably, like a lot of fans out there, it took me a minute to sort of warm to the idea, because we had no hints about it. They dropped it in as a complete surprise. And for most people, they saw the relationship between Black Widow and Clint in the movie, and they thought, oh, they might have been lovers at one time, they might be again, and then you're like, oh no, this is a very different situation, and that's not going to happen because she's part of this family in a non-sexual way, so in a non-romantic way. And so I think that one doesn't work quite as well, though I think it's worked better over time. And I will say that the smartest thing they did about it was, like you said, really showing that Natasha was really integrated into that family in a really powerful way. Like, that's Auntie Nat,
Yeah.
She loves Laura. They're all very thick as thieves, it feels. And that was a really smart move because that really softened the blow. I mean, I know it didn't for some people, but for a lot of people, it softened the blow that, like, oh, well, maybe they're never going to be together romantically in this universe, but they're never going to not be important to each other. Like, this sort of almost transcends that in a way, which I do think in the final, in the end game, I do think we really saw that. A lot of us, including me, are very mad that Natasha was the one who died in that scene, but it's a great scene and it really highlights, the strength of that relationship between those two characters.
Yeah, I still cry every time I watch that scene.
Have you been watching What If at all?
I haven't. I know they sort of righted that wrong. I'm using air quotes here. I heard that through the grapevine.
Oh yeah, I cried through that episode too.
So you should watch What If because it's solely based on the MCU stuff. It's not directing from the comics.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it is solely through Marvel Cinematic Universe, Marvel's What If. And I don't want to spoil it, but Alison, you know what I want to say.
Oh, I know what you want to say. And
Widow and that future and whatever happens in there, well, who knows? Maybe they could be romantically linked. You never know.
Yeah, but no, there's three. You end up having 3 separate Natashas and 3 separate Clints, not all at the same time. But no, it's really good. But one thing I was thinking about with Hawkeye's family, and with now knowing that Yelena is being told, you can go avenge your sister by going and killing Hawkeye, kind of thread that they had at the end of Black Widow. And I'm kind of hoping that Yelena, having heard all the stories that Natasha talked about Clint during the movie, will make her actually want to learn about her sister instead of avenging her sister through him. Yeah,
I mean, listen, I'm excited, just like anyone, to potentially see a fun Hawkeye, White Widow fight. That'll be fun. It'll be fun the way I always like superhero fights, which is make it cool, make it brief, have them get past it. Like, I don't want them fighting each other for long. So I guess that's a definite concrete hope I have for the show is I'd like to see them fight, and then I'd like to see them quickly move past that and work together, or, for the common good of Natasha or the people Natasha cares for coming together. So yeah, I hope that's, there's also a thread where I'm very happy if she's smart enough to avoid the fight. And like you said, really, really think about what Natasha would have wanted and approach it from a different angle. And I think that they are writing a more nuanced Yelena than we've frequently seen in the comic. And I sort of include my own in that. She's a very strong personality who sort of a little bit goes off half cock sometimes. So, we'll see what they do there. I'd be fine if she avoided them fighting and just took a different angle. I think that would be smart. But if they do fight, I just hope it's very cool and brief.
So now here's a fun one for you. And it's not on our script, Mike, so don't worry about that. So there are 2 directions I can see the MCU going with how they've been playing these TV series. I can see them either going and having a West Coast Avengers or a Young Avengers based on the characters that we've gotten to see. Which way would you want to go if you could join as a writer?
Well, I think I'm just way too biased. I think if they were going to do a West Coast Avengers that involves my girl Kate, probably they're going to be looking at my book. And so selfishly, I really like that. And certainly if I was going to be involved, I really like that. I do think that the format of our West Coast Avengers series with the confessional interviews and stuff they could have so much fun with that. I think it could be amazing. But if I take myself completely outside of it, I think the heat's probably more on Young Avengers. That was very popular, not just some of the original stuff back when Kate was created, but, you know, also the Kieran Gill and Jamie McKelvey stuff is so cool. I think, you know, if I was Marvel, I would want to push, you know, our team was very diverse in West Coast Avengers, but it was less forefront. I tried my best. I got some of it in there. I didn't get as much of it as I wanted in there. I think some of that fault's on me. Some of it's not, but, I do think the sort of youth would be more in the West Coast or in the Young Avengers. I mean, people have been wanting that book back for so long, and to see it come alive with all new young characters like the next generation, that makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah. Because, I mean, we've already seen, what is it? We have seen, obviously we're going to see Kate. We know we have Cassie. The kid who's going to be who would play Iron Patriot was in Falcon and Winter Soldier. And, we had the child versions of Billy and Tommy already in WandaVision. So
we also had, isn't America Chavez going to be in, Doctor Strange? Didn't I read that?
Yes, you're right. She is.
Yeah. So those seem like the pieces to me for building a Young Avengers. West Coast Avengers, you could certainly spin it out of Hawkeye, but I don't know why you wouldn't just spin another Hawkeye out of Hawkeye, whether that be Hawkeye and Hawkeye or Hawkeyes or Clint leaving the title to become to let it be Kate's, or Kate leaving the title to become something else. I don't know. It wouldn't make a ton of sense. You know, both Young Avengers and West Coast Avengers have the name in it. If for some reason marketing doesn't love the name Young Avengers, which I can sort of see, I could see them going with calling a Young Avengers West Coast Avengers, but keeping it more, you know, or maybe they'd hybridize it. Maybe they'd take a little from both and create something new. That would be fun. I mean, putting it on the West Coast and using Young Avengers characters plus maybe a confessional aspect, reality show thing element to really get in there. Like, all of that stuff could be fun. There's so many options. I mean, listen, when I look at I love the Marvel films. I think they're incredible. I think they're an incredible feat overall. So many of them are good. Not all of them, but so many of them. They come together in a way that makes you care about these characters so much because you end up spending so much time with them. I mean, the death of Tony Stark in Endgame hit me like so much harder than it deserved to. Like, it's a comic book movie and people always come back and all these things. But, you know, I've been living with this guy through multiple movies for so long, and I really love that character. And so it really was earned, that pain we all felt. And the biggest, so I love the MCU, but I do think that what we're seeing from the TV side is really exciting because WandaVision feels completely different than Winter Soldier, and Winter Soldier feels completely different than Loki, and Loki feels different than Hawkeye feels like it's going to be. And, you know, so that ends up feeling more like comics to me, you know? I mean, because for the superhero movies, they really have to pigeonhole themselves. And I think that's deliberate and it was smart, and I've got no problem with it. They made very big smash 'em up classic action movie set piece superhero movies, right? But on TV, you could do something a little different. Like, this is our magic one, and this is our investigators, and this is our, you know, and so you can see all those different sides. Like, this can be sci-fi, and this can be romance, and this could be a detective story, and they can all still live within the Marvel universe in a really beautiful way.
Yeah. Yeah, that is very true. And the thing that I like what Marvel is talking about with these TV series is that even though they're like mini series in a way, they're not saying that they're not saying any of these series are over. They just list them as season 1s. Because they've said if they ever do have an idea for another story within their mini worlds, they want to be able to come back to it. And I would love to be able to see some crossovers between them. Like I was telling Matt the other day when we did his interview that, it's his dang fault that I'm into Winterhawk as like my favorite ship of all time nowadays. And I want to see, the Bucky Clint team up.
Yeah.
Especially since MCU wise, they've got a lot more in common in MCU than they do in comics.
Yeah, but I'm not sure you're going to, I guess it's possible they do that. I would love it because I thought we weren't ever really going to get that dynamic between them because clearly that was the Sam dynamic. They were taking that dynamic and applying it to Sam. And I loved it. I really, really loved it. And I like that they grew through it in their season, but I'll be honest, it was more fun for me when they were sort of sniping at each other and being annoyed with each other, but trying to get along. Like that had more crackle to me than just, oh, hey, we're really good friends that support each other. I'm not saying I don't want them to be really good friends who support each other. I do, but there's a lot more crackle and pop in the other thing. And so part of me is like, well, maybe since he and Sam are good now, we could port him over and he could have that dynamic with Hawkeye. That'd be great. But my guess is that's not going to be a direction they go.
Well, that's what fan fiction's for.
Throw a little Grayson in there, and then you got a whole keg of things going on.
Hey, that is my freaking fan fiction world.
I know it is.
Kelly, I don't know if I've told you, but I actually write what I call my Circus Bros world, which is the world where DC and Marvel are like the same world. And Clint and Dick knew each other during when they were in the circuses.
Oh, that's fun.
So yeah, so we have Hawkeye and Nightwing, every now and then going into a case together. But yeah, so now that we've seen some of these trailers, what is like the one thing you've seen in the trailer that just like got you really excited for how this series is going to go?
I think casting Haley Steinfeld that's an incredible, smart call. There are certainly a lot of different actresses that I'm sure would have been great cast, but she is absolutely one of them. I just think she's going to nail it. So that is a thing. I think the other thing that I really respond to, and especially the new trailer, I love a sort of Christmas special, a Christmas movie. Shane Black loves to integrate Christmas into his big movies. I always love that. Die Hard is, of course, the quintessential Christmas movie that's not a Christmas movie that is a Christmas movie. So I think that's very fun. I wanted to groan in the best possible way at the Bose pun. That's felt so comics. I loved that.
This holiday season, the best gifts come with a bow.
So I think they've got a lot to go to speak for them so far. I think what we've seen is pretty great so far.
Yeah, I love the scene where they're driving and they're going through the arrows and Clint's just like, not this one, not this one. Here, take this one. And then it explodes the trust a bro thing. And she's like, you have arrows more dangerous than this? And that look that Jeremy Renner pulled off on camera, that was Clint. That is my Clint face. Yeah.
That whole scene was, of course, incredibly encouraging. Hawkeye 3, by Matt Fraction and David Aja is one of my favorite comics of all time. Maybe the perfect comic book, single issue comic book. So to see them playing literally with the ideas in that issue is really fun.
Yeah.
That's a very high bar though. So I hope they nailed it. Cause
I do too.
That's a perfect comic.
Yep. And also using the frozen daiquiri mixes as ice packs.
Yeah.
Man, maybe there will be fake frozen peas or something in one of those boxes that they send out. They do those PR boxes sometimes. I got a couple of them. They were very cool.
Oh gosh. That would
the WandaVision one had a TV tray and a little glass, like a little cups, 2 cups, I think. It was so cool. I also got the Winter Soldier one, which had more candy in it, which was fun, but nothing that left as big as an impression as like the TV tray ideas, which was so clever.
How do I get on these lists for these things?
Well, I didn't even get the Loki box. So what I would say you probably have to do, I think the only thing I don't know how I got on the list. I think maybe because I'd been writing Scarlet Witch recently in Star. So maybe that's why I got on the WandaVision list, and because I'd been writing Winter Soldier and Black Widow, maybe that's why I lucked out and got those. But I'd also written a little bit of Loki and Star, and that didn't get me on. So I don't know what the bar is. But they're pretty exclusive, these things. I assume they go out to creatives and other sort of similarly placed people, I would guess.
Yeah, because DC did one for Fandom where they sent out the video game for Gotham Knights, sent out these boxes to different influencers, and it had like a Court of Owls mask and like this, like all these like little tidbits that would be revealed for when they released the official game trailer on Fandom. And I'm just like, oh, I hate y'all. I want one. Honestly, I think the last thing I really got around on here, because we talked a lot about, the show and, your history with the Hawkeyes. But why don't you talk about, like the things you're working on right now? Like, your little baby land shark, and then the most recent of Black Widow issue that I'm angry at you about still.
Yeah, so let's start with Hawkeye adjacent things. So It's Jeff is a basically silent comic that I've written with the incredible artist Guri Hiru. It's on the Marvel Unlimited app, and people are loving it. Jeff has become a very special star, especially on TikTok. And it's amazing. And Kate Bishop sometimes shows up, as do other little superhero guest stars. And I'm also writing Black Widow, which sometimes stars Clint and Bucky, among other people. Kate was in a recent issue, but she's not in the new arc. And so that was issue 12 just came out, and that's the start of a new arc. So if you've been on the fence about getting on, that would be a good place to jump in. We've got a really incredible flashback issue for issue 13 that I think is really exciting, especially because Jordi Belair turned in these absolutely mind-bending colors. They're so incredible. So that's exciting. And I'm also writing Captain Marvel. We're having a crazy historic run. I'm working on 36 right now. I just saw the final inks on 35, and they are so freaking cool. Sergio Davila is an incredible artist, and he's really killing it on there. And what else? So I've also got a Substack. I'm doing Amazing Spider-Man. I'm part of the team writing the new Amazing Spider-Man book. My second issue is out next week. Sara Pichelli art, Nolan Woodard colors. He's amazing. And then I'm also doing this Substack thing where I'm going to be producing a couple comics that release digitally via Substack, but before those come out, they've not started yet. The first one's called Black Cloak with the incredible Meredith McLaren. The second one, I don't know if it'll be the second in order, but is a book called The Cull by Mattia De Iuliis, my former Jessica Jones collaborator at Marvel. But before the books even come out, we're doing a lot of really fun posts that are about like comics creation and behind the scenes stuff and process. And we're having a really good time. We're building a little community over there. It's really great. If you're, you can sign up for free and like see if you like it. And then if you want, you can subscribe. There will be stuff behind a paywall at some point, but so far most everything's been free, I think.
Yeah, I really like your process junkie ones that you've been showing lately. That whole subset has been really, really thoughtful for me when I'm going in and trying to think about things to share with my students.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, I'm doing one coming up. There's a interview next week with Lee Jarbet about Captain Marvel costume stuff. And then I will be doing a post maybe next week, or it might be the week after that, that's got script samples from a whole bunch of different creators so people can see the different ways people do it. They'll just be short samples, like 2 or 3 pages or something, but enough for people to get the idea of like, oh, this is how Kelly Thompson does it, but this is how Matt Rosenberg does it, and this is how Saladin Ahmed does it. So I think, God, that stuff would have been so valuable for me to have as a kid and, as a teen trying to figure it out in my French 3 class, not knowing how to structure a comic. It would have been great to be able to go online and see the different ways people do it.
Yeah, and I'm just pulling up the one that you sent out. Well, no, this is the one from 2 hours ago. I haven't read that one yet. But you had one where you had a couple of your characters, like, in comic book form talking to you about what they want to be. Yeah.
That's it's a good time. Yeah, we're having a lot of fun. It's we're trying to build a little community over there. I mean, I think, nobody's under the delusion that you can bring all your Twitter followers over there or, anything like that. But I do think, going back to the thing we were talking about before about how toxic the anonymity can be, a lot of creators, even before people started getting these Substack Pro offers, that means you can actually pay people to help you make comics. Before that, a lot of creators were going over there because they want to stay in touch with the people who want to know about their work and their audience. Like, it's so valuable to us and so important to us, but you don't always want to do it in that toxic environment. So a lot of us had already, not that we were abandoning Twitter, but that we were like, well, let's try this. Like, let's see if this is a way to help build another audience. And especially now with the pro deals, I think it's even more important. So it's an experiment. I mean, I don't, I'll be shocked if I end up with 1,000 newsletter or, 5,000 newsletter subscribers, free or paid. So I'll never come close to the Twitter numbers, but you also don't need those huge numbers. Like, the people who are really engaging with you and really interested in what you're saying and want to talk about things, that's not 40,000 people. That's some much smaller number of people. And those are the ones that are important. So,
like 2 people on a podcast, one who had the idea and the schmuck who just hosts it.
Not a schmuck.
So your words, not ours.
Yes. And randomly, what do you think of the difference between Substack and Patreon? Because I know that's 2 different ways that a lot of creators are able to talk with their fan base one-on-one and share.
Yeah, I think Patreon's great. I support several myself. I think the big problem, because I looked at doing a Patreon at different times, especially when I was thinking about how are ways that I could raise the money to write this other novel that I wanted to write. I've never got the time and blah, blah, blah. But Patreon is so art driven. To me, it doesn't really feel like blogging, which is sort of what Substack feels like blogging going directly into your inbox. I would say Substack feels very much like a platform for writers. So it feels very natural to me, whereas Patreon didn't really feel that way.
Okay.
That said, obviously Substack is having to up their game. They partnered with that Panels app and things like that, because by the very nature of Substack feeling at home to writers means it's not as at home to posting comics as you'd like it to be. But I think that's changing. I'm already reading 2 books on the Panels app through, it's Shiv Zdarsky's Public Domain, I think. Or no, I think it's Jeff Lemire's Fish Flies is on Panels. And so is James Tinian's Blue Book. And they look incredible. So I'm really, they look good in the newsletter too, but if you prefer, an app that's more geared that way specifically, that's a great avenue. And I'm excited to see that developing, especially since my comics are coming soon.
Yeah, that's good, because that's the one thing I've always struggled with Patreons. I don't feel comfortable navigating the app and how people want visual on there.
Yeah.
And I just end up throwing pictures of my cats because that's really all I got.
Yeah. I would say that, while Patreon and Instagram and things like that lean very heavily to image, newsletters like Substack, and there's a million of them. There's MailChimp. There's all sorts.
Yeah.
They certainly lean more toward the written word, but it doesn't stop you from wanting a lot of great images in every post. So
yeah, it's been a while since your cats have shown up, hasn't it?
Well, I've only been putting them in the sort of weekly, the sort of roundup that's not about a specific thing, but has a bunch of categories here's what's upcoming and here's what's whatever. That's got a cat section. But it's funny you said that, because I did think maybe I should just be putting a cat photo at the bottom of every one of these, regardless of what it's about, as a joke. So maybe we'll do that. I've certainly got enough photos to last several years. So
yes.
You could always do a mirror universe version of Jeff and just call him F.
I have a little shark head costume. I can send you to that. You can have them walking around like that, doing Jeff poses. All right. So, final question. So, Kelly, with your intimate knowledge of both the Hawkeyes and their world, do you want to be a Hawkeye?
Hell yeah.
Awesome. Matt was complete opposite.
Wait, why wouldn't he want to be a Hawkeye? Maybe I didn't understand
Rosenberg.
the question.
Rosenberg, yeah.
Why though? Why didn't he want to be a Hawkeye?
I think it's because of the amount of... Oh my gosh, you're going to have to pull up the clip. Do you want to be a Hawkeye?
Wow. I'm going to say no. He's the sad thing is, if there was any superhero I would be, he's probably the one I would be. But no, I don't want to be a Hawkeye.
You don't want to fall off roofs into dumpsters and stuff?
No, I don't want to I don't want to barely make it out of every fight. That's not a good way to be. Thor shows up and sometimes he just clobbers everybody and leaves and he looks great. He doesn't even break a sweat. That's a good one to be.
I mean, except for the fact of when he goes up against force fields and thank God this podcast is explicit. Holy shit. Hey, language.
Sure.
The other question we need to ask you, and we need to work this into future things, Alison.
Okay.
If you did want to be a Hawkeye, which trick arrow would you want?
Trick arrow is just so hard. I like just a good old fashioned gas arrow, knockout gas. That's just a good arrow. That's just useful. You're not hurting people bad. It's good for stealth. It's funny. That's a good arrow. Explosive arrow has limited use. Boomerang arrow has almost no use. There's a lot that are very specific, but I think knockout gas, that's just always useful.
Definitely not this one.
You don't have to say definitely like that.
I think it had to be something with the amount of, pain.
Injury. No, he's right. I'm doing the fan answer, but Matt's doing the actual answer where you thought about it. Yeah.
Which we talked a lot about you also while we were interviewing him, and he was gushing about how you're his best friend and how much you mean to him and how much he enjoys reading your stuff.
He's amazing. Matt's amazing. We're BFFs. I'm a big fan of his work, and more than that, Matt's one of the best people I've ever known. Yeah. Sometimes he'll say or do a thing, and I'm like, ugh, I don't know if I can be your friend. You're too good. You're just so much better than me. And he's not trying to be better than me. He's just a really good dude. Ed Brisson is our third musketeer there in that our trio. And he's a pretty good dude too, although he's a Canadian, so of course he is, right?
Yeah, that's kind of part of their nurture,
But I'm very lucky to have Matt and Ed. Comics can be very lonely. It doesn't have to be, but it can be. And gosh, without their insight, whoosh, I would be lost in the woods.
Yeah. So I take it, since you say all your friends live far away from you, you're not in New York?
No, I used to be, actually. Right as my career started taking off, though, and people started asking me to come to meetings in New York, I moved to Portland, Oregon. So that's convenient.
Complete opposite.
But I'd been in New York for about 11 years when we left, and I was pretty burned out. That's a city for the rich, the young, and the beautiful, as far as I'm concerned. And I was none of those things at that point. So I was ready to just have things not be so hard, it's nice to be able to park your car without driving around for, I kid you not, 3 hours.
Oh, I know perfectly. I'm from Yonkers originally.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, so I know all that.
Yeah.
I mean, it would be nice if you just had a pair of earrings that you could just magically tap and everything just happens.
Oh,
or, you could just wave your arm and then this portal appears in a star shape in front of you. And you just step through it.
I mean, when you said that, I was going to say, well, if that existed, maybe I would live in New York. But no, I mean, I'd live somewhere even further away because you could just go wherever you want. So
you have your own little island and then you have your portal transportation.
I would really like to go to New Zealand, so maybe I would do that.
Kelly, I think you're spirit twins or something.
I don't know if it's ever going to happen, though, man. That is a long-ass flight. I don't know.
But it's worth it, though, from what I've been told. It really is.
It's supposed to be worth it. I mean, listen, it's number one on the places I'd like to go on this planet, but I'm supposed to go to Hawaii next summer.
Ooh.
And I've been before. Mm-hmm. And I was doing the math for how long that flight was, and I was like, I don't know, man. This is gonna be rough. So it's been a while since I have had to do anything as bad or worse than LA, New York. The pandemic has definitely made me even more leery of that kind of thing. So
yeah, I didn't want to fly when I went for my graduation, so I drove from Nashville to Colorado. And I took advantage of it. I made sure I had extra days off from when I was going to be driving. So that way I could stop in Santa Fe. That was my big one. I wanted to stop in Santa Fe and, stopped at a couple other places along the way. But there was this one point where I realized if you're driving during the summer, along Route 66, don't expect to find a hotel room last minute.
That happened. I think a lot of that's the pandemic, though, too. That happened to us. We drove this summer because I didn't want to fly. We were, for the first time in a year and a half, we were getting to see my family. Everyone was getting together at a house in LA. And we drove because I didn't want to fly. And we encountered that, too, everything being sold out on the road. So
yeah,
I hear you.
But there's this one point between Santa Rosa and Santa Fe that I hit at 1:00 in the morning and no ambient light whatsoever, clear sky. I pulled off enough to the side of the road that I wouldn't get hit by a car coming by, turned off my headlights and just stood outside and stared up at the sky.
Yeah.
I've never, because I grew up in New York, never seen
that. Oh, that's incredible. Yeah, it's incredible. It's been a lot. It's been a really long time since I was far enough away from a city and light pollution to really see that. But I grew up part of my time in Colorado and Utah, and there's a lot of really beautiful open spaces out there. It's pretty incredible. Yeah. Where did you go to school in Colorado?
Western Colorado University up in Gunnison.
Oh yeah, yep, I know Gunnison.
Yep, they have it's a low residency Masters of Creative Writing.
Oh, that's cool.
They do you can do creative writing for genre fiction, for screenwriting, for poetry, for nature writing, and now they have a 1-year certificate for publishing as well.
Wow, pretty cool. Cool. Congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, guys, I got to go. We went a little long here. I got to get back to it. But thank you so much for having me on. I had a great time.
Absolutely. You could just, swim from Portland to Hawaii, then from Hawaii to New Zealand. I mean, it's a straight shot down the North Pacific.
Well, this might surprise you given some of my history here, but I'm very afraid of sharks.
Kelly,
oh boy.
What's
You are
that?
like my new favorite person. Well, you already were a favorite person, but you're like my favorite person now.
Sometimes you create a thing you're afraid of to fall in love with it. I don't know that I've actually softened on real shark. No, I have. I'm probably still equally afraid of them as I ever was before, but my position on them has certainly softened since creating Jeff. So
There you go.
That's great. Well, guess, Mike, that you got to take us out then.
Thank you for joining us here inside the Pull Bag and on Studio 2009. If you'd like to get in contact with us to leave feedback for the show, there are several ways to do so. Visit the website, geekcastradio.com, where you can comment on all of our posts and listen to all our content from the last 13 years. Send us email to feedback@geekcastradio.com. Here are all the ways you can listen to us nowadays. Apple and Google Podcasts. Leave us reviews, please. Spotify and any other podcatching client you choose to use. Follow us on Twitter @GeekCastRadio is for the network. @ITS Studio 2009 is for the studio. And @the Pullbag is for the Pullbag. I'm @TFG and Mike. Kelly, what is your Twitter?
@79 semifinalist.
What is the story behind that? Is it a quick one?
It's pretty quick. It's simply, by the time I got to social media, Kelly Thompson is a really common name. It was all taken up. And so I knew I needed to sort of brand myself. And it's one of my favorite songs from one of my favorite bands called The Bad Plus. And it's a song called 1979 Semifinalist. And I think it's also sort of a state of mind. It's sort of an idea of you're a semifinalist. Keep trying. You know what I mean? Like, don't give up. Keep pushing. That kind of vibe.
Absolutely. What about you, Alison? What's your Twitter?
It is Ali Sky Richards. ALISKYRICHARDS. And I can never now not sing the Mickey Mouse theme song.
MOUSE. Become a fan on Facebook. Go to facebook.com/Geekcast Radio Network. You can also check out Studio 2009 Podcast and the Pullbag over there as well. Join us next time when we will be doing So You Want to Be a Hawkeye some more with the next guest. I don't know who the next guest is going to be off the top of my head because all the script says for me is November stuff because it's now November 2021, folks.
Yep.
For now, I am TFG1 Mike with
Ali Sky Richards
and Kelly Thompson.
As always, dive into the Pullbag at your local comic book store and make your great escape into comics.
Come on!
You're a Hawkeye.
Who the hell are you?
Kate Bishop.
You're a kid. My God.
As always, make your great escape into comics. And you changed it. Don't change my ending.
I didn't change the ending.
You did dive into the Pullbag at your local comic. You did. That's take two.
Oh,
As always,
like 2 weeks, two episodes ago.
Oh well, I didn't read it that way back then. Fuck. Good outtakes, folks. Good outtakes.
We're out of regular arrows.
What do you mean? Oh my God, trick arrows?
Look, not this one.
All right, you don't have to say definitely like that.
Not this one. This is too dangerous.
Fine,
Wait.
I'm using this one.
Be careful.
I was born careful.
They're not regular arrows.
Miney.
Come on.
Mo. Your arrows more dangerous than that one?
You've just heard the latest episode of The Pullbag, the GCRN's first comic review and discussion podcast. There are several ways to get in touch with us and leave feedback for the show. You can visit the website, geekcastradio.com, where you can comment on the episode and all of our different podcasts. You can rate and leave a review for the show on iTunes. Be sure to leave us feedback. Become a fan of us on Facebook, facebook.com/thepullbag. Send us an email, feedback@geekcastradio.com. Follow us on Twitter @thepullbag and @geekcastradio. So until next time, make your great escape into comics and unleash the geek in you.